I am the law. Oh my god, man, it's been a minute since I've seen this film. But yeah, I will be covering, my thoughts on the 1995 film Judge Dredd, starring Sylvester Stallone. Before I continue, please do me a huge favor and like this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know how you feel about the Stallone version of Judge Dredd. All the good, all the bad, all that stuff. And man, revisiting this film, it is fun. It's a fun film, but it does have its flaws. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah. Personal disclosure, I never only there's only one Judge Dredd comic that I've read, and that was a long time ago when they had a crossover between Judge Dredd and the Predator, and it wasn't very good, from what I remember. But just like a straight up Judge Dredd comic, I should check it out. I never read a Judge Dredd. I was only familiar that it was based on a comic because I've seen the film as a kid. That was my first introduction to the world of Judge Dredd. And he is like a cool character. He's like straight up built to be an action character. And what I knew of Judge Dredd based from the movie is the fact that, as we get a little bit of the breakdown of the lore or the history of this universe, is where, it's way in the future, kind of like an apocalypse happened. Mega cities were built because like almost the other part of the world's pretty much like a fallout area. A very Mad Max type of landscape, and there's only like a few cities called mega cities that's pretty much corralling a bunch of states into one locale, and lawlessness pretty much ramped up because it's so congested. Crime will of course start spiking to crazy numbers, and that's where these new law enforcement came about, called judges, where they learn about these other sets of laws, where they read the rights, do the sentencing and potentially executions if need be. But primarily they will send you to like a prison outside of the mega city. I don't know what they call it, ISO cubes or something like that. I'm curious to know what these supposed laws. Let me quickly, because I'm curious. What are, because there was a handbook shown. Anti-crime code, because there was this thick handbook seen in the film as Judge Dredd was teaching these cadets. But I want to check it out really quick because I'm curious. Anti-crime code. Section 32 permits judges to incapacitate large numbers of citizens to apprehend persons hiding in their midst. Section 59C, aka crime swoop. A judge's legal right to enter the home of any citizen and search for incriminating evidence. 59D, crime blitz. A coordinated search of an entire city blocked by teams of judges for incriminating evidence or signs of illegal activity. Citizens may be detained and interrogated if it is believed that they have committed a crime, assisted in the commission of a crime, or have knowledge of a crime committed by others. Judicial indictments. The laws created by the Council of Judges to judge their own. They are handed down by the Special Judicial Squad. Judicial indictment number 1, treason, death. Number 2, corruption, debadge and sentenced to hard labor on Titan colony. Indictment 2A, murder. 2B, perverting the course of justice. Number 3, abuse of judicial authority, debadge and sentenced to hard labor at a cursed earth labor camp. Indictment 4, the illegal obtaining of a confession by a judge from a suspect by physical torture, either the long walk or debadge and sentenced to hard labor in a city reclamation crew, depending on the severity of the crime, judge's service record, and judge's motive and mental state. Acts, laws passed by the judges constitute to deal with crises not dealt with in the Anti-Crime Code. Security of the City Act of 2071 permits Justice Department to undertake normally illegal actions should either the political or physical safety of Mega City 1 be directly threatened. Originally created to remove President Booth with power after the Great Atom War, modified since to cover a wider variety of issues. Genetic Purity Act of 2079, aka Mutant Segregation Act, law forbidding mutants from citizenship within the borders of Mega City 1. Yeah, and also there is because of the whole nuclear war, whatever like that happened in this universe, some people get radiation poisoning, and worst case scenario you end up like with some physical mutations. Best case scenario, you might end up with like psychic powers, and most judges often use them in terms of like helping catching criminals and stuff. But not like X-Men mutants technically. Public Health Act of 2087 authorizes judges to destroy any property that poses a significant health risk to the environment. Dredd Act of 2101 bans all forms of animal experimentation. Fat Control Law of 2104 forced segregation of heavily overweight citizens, fatties, quote unquote, following the food shortages in the wake of the Apocalypse War of 2104. After strict rationing went into effect, fatties began acquiring extra food illegally by fraud, theft, or armed robbery to maintain their weight. Convicted citizens would be assigned to segregated blocks and would not be allowed into regular housing until they slimmed down to a healthy weight. The act was repealed several years later when the crisis had passed. That is insane. I didn't even know this. That is wild. They didn't have the entire law. This is what we know, I guess, from the comic books themselves. That's what I'm looking up right now. But can you imagine they actually put a law into this in real life? There'll be like a massive outcry. But it would help for most cases or extreme cases. But anyway, I just have to bring it up and say, like, what is like the actual laws in this universe, at least in terms of the comic. Anyway, so we introduced into this world, and we now the musical score is incredible. It's done by Alan Silvestri, and the city itself, by and large, the backdrop gives it the impression of something like the old Blade Runner film, something akin to that. Except, you know, in terms of dreariness, Blade Runner still got it in the bag. The way the judges look, cool for its time, but looking back on it now, it looks like it's just clearly meant to sell action figures. I will be getting into the Dredd film, the 2012 reboot, which fairly recently I just found out I think they actually is forming up a script to a sequel. That's what I heard. I'm not sure how confirmed that is, but if it is true, I'm excited. But with that second rebooted film, I think they made it more practical and tactical and quote unquote realistic, rather than this. I mean, they was comic accurate with this film. I give it that, but the practicality of it, because they really do away with it after a certain period when like the real action starts ramping up. Oh, and I also want to make a point of it because I might not remember it, but I want to address it now. What the rebooted got right, it got a lot of things right, but what this one got wrong, the biggest deal for a lot of Judge Dredd fans, is the fact that he does not take off his helmet. You do not know what Judge Dredd really looks like in the comics. The rebooted was a lot more faithful in that aspect, where in this one, because we got Sylvester Stallone, a well-known action star, has to show his face. And I respect Carl Urban, who honored the source material to such a degree, he refused to take off his helmet in any of his scenes. He kept that sucker on. You do not see his face, and it's like I hugely respect that. Anyway, we're introduced to this former hacker character named Fergie, not the singer, who is new. Is like original character for this movie, who is a parolee who is assigned to a particular apartment by the judge system. And in terms of when he gets there, that particular block is in like a turf war kind of situation. Everybody just shooting across the street from each other. And when Fergie gets to his apartment, is already kind of taken over and used as like a just the whole ground. So he ends up getting roped into this mess. That's when Judge Hersey and Judge Dredd show up. Tells everybody like, hey, you're all under arrest. Nobody's listening. So he goes into the apartment and takes down a lot of people. Including the main guy in the apartment. And then he finds Fergie hiding out in like a cleaning sweeper machine. And he said, it's like, okay, you're sentenced to prison essentially. Like, oh, you hacked again, and so that you broke your parole, so you're going back. And he pleaded his case. It's like, look, I got roped into this. I wasn't even there was pretty much in my freaking apartment doing all this stuff. I got roped in. I didn't even want to do it. And Dredd is like, well, you could have just jumped out the window. And it's like, oh, it wasn't 40 stories, like 4 stories or something like that. It's like that would have been suicide, maybe, but it's not illegal. And Hershey, of course, it's like kind of flabbergasted. It's like, how long you know this guy? You clearly knew him for a while. It's like you don't know this is kind of his, he's really strict with the law, whereas almost like to like a dangerous fault where he doesn't have any kind of room for compassion at all. Where she could like you couldn't. Well, I guess one of the thing is what I learned from the second film is the fact that a structure of justice is also a penalty, and you would also be, arrested for that too. But it's just there's no wiggle room for Dredd. He's like, he knows the law backwards and forwards. But that's one of the things that you can really debate about with this film. It's like the strictness and rigidness of the laws, where I can see if you looking at the history of this world, you can understand why they're implemented, but at no point they try to ease up on certain things or include some kind of human element, because you may be judges, but you really don't use judgments, if that makes any sense. And this kind of takes Hershey aback a bit, the fact that he just doesn't. This guy was put in an impossible situation. It's like, where's your compassion for that part? So she sees him teaching these new cadets, about ethics, and the way he describing it as a life as a judge, if you don't die on the field, you will retire by doing the long walk, where you after you serve at the council for a number of years, after you've done your street duties over a number of years, you will bring law to the lawless out in the wilderness with high honors. And Hershey kind of comments, it's like, you make it seem like we just got no life outside of this, because like, don't you got any friends? Like, I had one, but I had to judge him because he broke the law. It's kind of, you think about it, it's kind of effed up, but you'll see as to why later. We see later that a prisoner named Rico escaped from a penal colony, which he looks like he used to be a judge. He got his badge and his, a makeshift gun, and made his escape. Comes back into Mega City 1, goes to a pawn shop and find like a suitcase left for him with his judge's gear. And he reactivates this, what do you call it, the ABC Warrior? Yeah. Which is a cannon type of robot to be his like bodyguard, essentially. And Judge Dredd eventually gets arrested himself under the crime of murder, where the night before, a reporter who was very critical of Judge Dredd's methods has been shot and murdered in his own apartment, and has been played over and over and over again in Judge Dredd's trial. And it's like, okay, I think we got it. After you played it the fifth freaking time, And of course, we know about Judge Fargo, who is like the head council member, who you know looks upon Dredd favorably because he was Dredd's teacher. Uh, and after talking with Dredd, he knows he's not the one who did it. And despite Hershey's defense, given the fact that the video could easily be doctored, we can't even see like clearly who it is, and anybody could, copy a judge's uniform. So it's kind of like, that's not, hard evidence. But because the bullet casings has Dredd's DNA on it somehow, he is immediately implicated. In order to save his life from immediate execution, Judge Griffin suggested to Fargo that maybe you should do the long walk. It'll spare his life, because it's kind of like a last request from like a retired judge. So he ends up, getting like Dredd sent to a penal colony instead. And it turns out Griffin is working with Rico. He's the one that broke him out, because Rico is just gung-ho about reactivating this old Janus project, which is pretty much a clone factory, DNA harvested from the consuls themselves to add more judges to the streets, because he just is obsessed with order, which is like it's like a decent foil for Dredd, or I guess like Rigo's kind of like a more a foil for Dredd, and Griffin is more of a flip side of Fargo, where Dredd and Fargo respect the law and make sure it's carried out justly, while Rico and Griffin perverts the law. Well, Rico, as we later find out, is the brother of Dredd, and the one who Dredd sentenced, because he broke the law. He caused like a massacre or something like that back in the day. And it turns out Rico was a clone, just like Dredd was. And I imagine Dredd was like a DNA was harvested from Fargo. That's probably why these two were so close. But of course, Dredd didn't know that until much later on. But Rico's kind of like a broken clone, where he has more free will, and well, I guess it kind of worked with Dredd, where he's kind of like very law focused, understand it, respects it. Rico just like turns essentially into the perfect criminal. And Griffin is obsessed with order. That's why I say like it's kind of like more of a foil for Dredd in a way, because Dredd is so rigid with the law, but he only takes it to the point what the law states to the letter, while Griffin takes it further than that, where he just want to how you describe it, it's kind of like lowering the drinking age in a way. It's like lowering the law to a certain age bracket or something like that, where he has it his way. He can arrest children for breaking any myriad of laws if he wanted to, because he so gung ho about, he's super obsessed with order across the board, to the point where he's willing to break out a well-known criminal, but because he's part of the Janus Project, he figures he can control him. but he didn't count on the fact that how crazy he is. Uh, so uh, Hersey ends up finding out that Dredd doesn't really have a family. Whatever baby picture he had turns out has been completely doctored. Only the baby is real in the photo. Judge Dredd doesn't really apparently have a family. Uh, while on transport to the prison, coincidentally, Dredd is sitting next to Fergie, the very guy he sentenced, and of course, Fergie is like, chewing him out over the fact that, if the law uh, is so perfect, how do you explain you being here? And I gotta mention here, before I forget, I guess I warmed up to Rob Schneider over the years in terms of his characters he plays in certain films, but it does he does get annoying from time to time, and it's like not necessarily his fault, but I'm just not a fan of Rob Schneider's performance in this. Where while in Demolition Man, he played such a small minor role where he isn't like he isn't annoying to the same degree. Matter of fact, even in like Home Alone 2, he is such a small part, but that small part he uses it perfectly. He is great in Home Alone 2. As a matter of fact, in terms of a movie he's actually a bigger lead in, the only one that I remember liking was the movie The Animal, which, by the way, I do kind of want to rewatch that because it has been such a long time. I would love to talk about that one. Don't know when I'm going to fit it in. No pun intended. Probably some point in August. I do want to check out The Animal. Yeah, it's honestly like the only movie that Rob Schneider being the main lead in. Well, other than Grown Ups, but that's like an ensemble. I don't even want to count that. But in terms of like him being like the main lead, The Animal is the only one I remember actually enjoying of his. But who knows? I might have like a different take on it now with my grown up brain. Anyway, so some hick cannibals shoots down the aircraft and kidnaps Dredd and Fergie, who are conveniently were the two survivors, technically. And of course, once word got out that the convoy that was holding Dredd has been shot down, Griffin sends some elite judges to go search the wreckage and orders the execution of any survivor. There's no survivors because he does not want Dredd coming back to foil his plans. So thanks to Dredd, he managed to take down the cannibals along with Fargo, who shows up in the nick of time, but he immediately gets stabbed in the back. And after the cannibals are taken down, Fargo admits to the hidden history behind Dredd and Rico. And so after Fargo explains about Lady Justice, we see like a Lady Justice statue, and uh, and I love this line how he says we shouldn't have taken the law out of her hands, and this is why I wanted to add the Dredd films to this month's Independence Day review, because you know the way our laws are set up in at least the country of the U.S. in particular, it's not perfect, but it helps establish some sense of order to keep people from, because we brought this kind of stuff to the Wild West for a reason, because we couldn't have people just do whatever and take the law in their own hands, because it'll turn into just complete upheaval. We gotta make sure we're able to, each state can govern themselves, but as a whole collective of the country, operate under like a particular guidelines that we all understood. And we also understand, like, yeah, law's not perfect, but it's the better system out of any other country in this world. But we also understand not to take things too far with them, otherwise you pervert it. There are certain laws that are unjust or stupid, like jaywalking. In the world of Judge Dredd, I imagine you will get sent to prison for legit jaywalking. They will take that very seriously. But here, there's quite a bit of people who jaywalk. Technically, it's probably still illegal, but don't really call anybody out on it. Matter of fact, could have sworn they kind of acknowledged that and kind of did away with that law. Is jaywalking illegal? When used in a technical sense, jaywalking specifically refers to a violation of pedestrian traffic regulations and laws, and is therefore illegal. In many countries, such as regulations does not exist, and jaywalking is an unknown concept. Jaywalking is illegal in many states when a pedestrian crosses. These laws aim to improve safety and define the right of way. Well, it looks like in New York is legal there. So I guess maybe in certain states it's legal and it's not really like a big deal anymore. But by and large, nobody really gets arrested for jaywalking. It's kind of one of those things, because like I'm pretty sure there's like I remember watching like a video of Legal Eagle a long time ago, and he was going over certain laws that technically still exist that we just don't acknowledge anymore because it's not really factors into the modern era anymore. You should look it up. I can't remember what it is, but I was kind of astounded what's still technically on the law books, but not really factors into day-to-day life. We don't even know if it even exists until you actually have to look it up. You might be surprised. We kind of just forget about it over time, because like I said, like something, because I think maybe there's got to be something that factors in a horse and buggy, but since we don't use horse and buggies like that anymore, except for very specific events or something like that, like it's not really a thing or people really care about. But it's like going back to the movie. It's like, yeah, there are certain, at least like the biggies, or like at least the main crop of laws that in general people know, and specifically judges, lawyers, and cops would definitely know that, okay, this is not allowed, otherwise you might do harm to others, yourselves, uh, and possibly property. We got to make sure that we operate under like a understanding to keep things civil. Uh, that is a big thing. We got to keep some civility among us, because oh oh we as a people, like, we gotta be able to, because since we're operating, like, let's say like a state, for example, it's like in order for other people to come and go, interact with each other, there's certain boundaries that we gotta universally come to an agreement that we cannot cross. So that way we can live harmoniously amongst each other. Of course, this the world of Judge Dredd kind of takes that to the extreme, but in a kind of cool, fun way. Anyway, Dredd and Fergie sneak back into Mega City, where Dredd gets his uniform back and sees that Rigo's back, as well as working with Griffin, who shoots his own freaking arm just to further penalize Dredd. After the duo make their escape, Griffin realized that Rico swapped out after they end up killing the council when they approved the Janus project, because Rico sabotaged and ambushed a bunch of judges, causing a lot of death among their ranks. So it forced the council's hand in order to reactivate the Janus project, so we get more judges on the street to corral everything. So there's no council, and the amount of judges on the street has severely diminished. So, to Griffin's surprise, don't know why he's surprised, but to his surprise, Rico swapped out the council's DNA with his, so all the clones pretty much have the free will and his line of thinking, because he wants, essentially a family. He felt abandoned. And of course he sees Dredd as his brother, and is hurt the fact that he judged him. Dredd and Fergie meet up with Hersey, who he confides and admits what's going on. So they track down Rico, and of course Rico ends up getting the ABC warrior to kill Griffin, who tries to stop Rico. When the trio comes into the building, they get ambushed by the robot, who wounds Fergie and holds captive of Hersey. And we see this probably memorable shouting match between Dredd and Rico. You broke the law! Law! It's kind of funny. It's still seeped into my brain after all these years. Every time I think of this film, I remember that particular scene. As a matter of fact, now I'm thinking about it, do not want to forget this part. This part is very forced. I don't think anybody really liked this part, but they try to force this catchphrase. Let's try to make it a thing, and it has never been a thing, even after all these years. People remember it, but it's not fondly. It never really caught on. It's kind of like fetch, where it's like, I knew you say that. It's like, are you trying to do a bit? Are you trying to force a catchphrase right now? And it just does not work. You couldn't just leave it at, I am the law. That is your catchphrase. That is like a Judge Dredd line. But you couldn't leave it at that. No, you're trying to make a whole extra thing, and it's like, So, thanks to Fergie hacking into the robot and decommissions it, this scientist girl that was working with Griffin, now working with Rico and probably boinking him too. They get into a fight while Rico and Dredd get into a fight, and somehow end up on the Statue of Liberty or something. I don't know. That's a weird transition of locations. Uh, Rico gets, pulled off the statue and falls to his death, and Hershey kills the scientist girl. Now, the remaining judges wants to appoint Dredd as the new head counsel, but he denies it because he just prefers to be a street judge. And the movie ends with Judge Dredd looking upon a city to continue on his work as a judge. Now, this is a fun film. Still like a very fun action film. Sure, it has its issues. Rob Schneider's character, I don't know. They really was forcing that actor into a lot of stuff in certain films, especially in Stallone films. He's not, still to this day, not my favorite character. They could have just they needed some kind of comedic aspect, and they couldn't rely on Stallone for that part. And I understand that, but yes, Rob Schneider can be funny, but sometimes he borderlines on annoying. He works well in small doses primarily. Even though like the outfits are comic accurate, they look like glorified action figures sometimes, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know how I feel, because like there's got to be some kind of happy medium between this and the rebooted one, because yeah, in the comics he had that gold eagle shoulder piece and everything like that in the comics, but this seems like cartoonishly big in the film, and it's like he doesn't even use it all the way through, and also he doesn't keep the helmet on, which is a comic accurate thing. Of course, they wasn't really committed all the way to the source material. They just did enough of it. So it's like, depending on your mood, you can forgive a lot of this stuff. Rico's awesome villain. Cool foil for Dredd. Hershey is a fine character, but clearly it's supposed to be like a Sandra Bullock type, like in Demolition Man or Speed. Clearly it's like a Sandra Bullock stand-in. You couldn't get Sandra Bullock, but how can we find a Sandra Bullock type? Oh, we get this actress. And it's a shame, because she's a good actress and I like her enough, but I don't know. It's just, she justified her, place in the film. She's not terrible, but it's like, I don't know. It's like also a forced love interest. It's like, did y'all come across more so as friends, because you didn't really build up any kind of romantic chemistry, or at least hint at like a past romantic fling. Like there was like a whole locker scene, and she could have mentioned like, why you never call me back after we went out for that date? Like, we went on that date one time, you kind of, never took it there, or something like that, to hint that there was some kind of groundwork laid. But no, it's just that there is chemistry, but it's almost like a friendship chemistry. There was no romance that I actually felt that kind of justified that ending kiss. Anyway, and then maybe in the comics she's a love interest, but I don't know. In the movie, I don't feel that. But anyway, that was Judge Dredd. Those are my thoughts on that film. In a few minutes, I will give my thoughts on the 2012 rebooted one. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the 1995 Stallone Dredd film. And I will see you all soon. Peace.